So, there's potential for life. Like when me and my girlfriend are engaging in intercourse, it would be wrong for me to pull out.
No, I'm saying
But there's potential life there, bro.
okay, let me talk.
You act like I talked over you a lot, bro. Chill.
You're right. Anyways, no, I'm saying like once it's in the implanted into the uterus, that's when I grant value.
Implantation? Why? What's the difference prior to implantation and after implantation?
I guarantee that it will become a baby.
It's not guaranteed. There's miscarriages.
All right, like 99% of the time.
Okay, well, you could say the same thing 0.1 second prior to implantation. There's no distinction in probability.
What does it matter?
Wait, you said the distinction is based on probability. That was your standard. Why does it matter? Did you just ask why your own
No,
standard
like what
matters?
is a 0.1 second? Like why does that matter?
I said 0.1 second prior to implantation.
Okay, sure, I value it then. What does it matter?
You value it prior to implantation? I thought you said implantation is what grants it value. What grants it
Yeah.
value? Because zero
If
point
it
0.1
has
second
the
prior
potential,
to implantation has not
anything that
occurred
has the
yet.
potential to become a baby,
Everything has the potential. What?
and like if you have the potential to one day be a living human being, I grant you value.
Well, that's okay. So that would be true at conception, correct?
Yeah.
So do you think it's better for someone to like a zygote? Like if I had a petri dish right now, where I had a zygote within that
Will it
petri
one day
dish,
be implanted?
wait, does that matter?
Yeah, it does.
Why?
Because with that, because if it's not going to be implanted, then there's no potential for life.
Potential. It's already living.
Like to be a human is what I mean.
It's already human.
Like to be a sentient human is what I'm saying. You're
Why is
arguing
what?
semantics right
I
now,
have, I
bro.
have a question. Why is the
What?
potential for sentience valuable, but not the past or like present? Why do you consider cellular life valuable, given that there's a future subjective experience, rather than valuing it once there's a past or present subjective experience?
I value both. I can hold a conjunct.
Okay, so for some reason you just care about cellular life. Okay, if you just care about cellular life, right? Then why don't you care about cellular life alone? Maybe.
What do you mean? I value anything that can one day become a sentient human.
So you value anything that one day will become a sentient human. Okay, I have a question. A zygote that in a million years will become a sentient human being. Do you consider it valuable? Where's the summer
Of
solstice?
course.
Do you think that we should have to keep it on like, different types of things until it becomes sentient?
Well, I don't think it would last that long.
You don't think it would last that long? What do you mean?
Like it would either become a living human or in a million years it'll probably degrade and decompose.
We're giving you a hypothetical for
Yeah,
testing
and I
consistency.
reject it because it's illogical. It'll decompose by then.
Okay. When you say it's illogical, you're assuming certain conditions that were not assumed in the hypothetical. But I'll run with your point. We'll give you a hypothetical that you would like to respond to in terms of like a scenario that you would consider relevant. Do you think women who have IUDs are
This is a good talking point. No,
okay? But
but
like it is the
what
case
if
that
I believe
not
in the
only can it
banning of
prevent
IUDs?
implantation, but it can I mean not only can it prevent fertilization, but it can also prevent implantation, meaning it prevents a
But
fertilized egg from implanting into the uterine wall. If that is the case, then clearly you would consider that correct because it was
it only
on
happens
track to
one
be a
percent of the
sentient
time.
human being. Well, in that 1% of time, is it
I think it happens so little for like it's so
in that one
it
percent of
happened.
time would it be? By the way, if you dropped like a thing that would in 1% of scenarios, or actually, if you engage in action that in 1% of scenarios leads to the death of an infant or a death of a kindergartner, would you think that action is wrong? Typically,
Yeah,
okay. Well, then
yeah.
that's this case then, right?
No, because it's less moral value.
Oh, okay. So then you consider zygotes of less moral value, even though they're on track for a subjective experience in the future. So is it
In
that
its
you
current state,
Okay,
yeah.
so then here's my question. Then, if it's so less valuable, well, then please, why do you consider
I
the
didn't say it was so less valuable.
well, it sounds so less valuable there. Wouldn't you consider like the desires and the aspirations and the goals of the sentient woman who's pregnant, right, over the zygote that has no subjective experience yet, or ever
Uh,
if you get an abortion?
unless the woman's life is on the line, then that baby should be brought to term.
Okay, so like if there's a zygote, or not, like sorry, not a zygote. If there's a child, right, that has been a, do you think that in that scenario that they should be forced to go through a pregnancy?
Well, luckily that happens like 0.1% of
No, don't say
abortions.
that
So
happens 0.1. That's ridiculous. Can you answer the question? Do you think that
how is that
that child,
ridiculous?
do you think that child should be forced to go through a pregnancy?
No, I can hold an exception there, but like I said, that happens so
Okay, so
non-frequently.
do you think any woman who's a should also have that exception? Like they should be allowed to get access to an abortion?
What's the point of making a
Just a
distinction
general.
between a woman and a child?
Well, I was asking you if you make that distinction. Oh, wait, actually, good question. What's the point of making a distinction between a woman and a child? You should view them differently in a moral sense there, right? Regardless of whether or not it's a woman and a child, right? You think that it would be considered bad, right?
Yeah, I can hold an exception there, but
Here's my
like I
question
said,
then.
that's one.
Watch this, chat. Watch this. Here's my question then. Do you think that you would vote for someone called Donald Trump if you were held civilly liable of a child?
I'm not going to engage in this
Why not?
because he didn't do that.
I'm just asking though. Like, I thought you don't make a distinction in a moral sense. Okay, so if you don't make a distinction in a moral sense, clearly that's not distinct from what happened in reality. Would you vote for him if you were held civilly liable of a child?
This is a moot point
Oh, he can't respond, can he? Why can't you respond, bro?
because what does this prove?
You know this.
How,
You
how
know
does
this
this
got.
relate? How does this disprove my
You know this got you
abortion
because
stance?
you view men like women and children here in a moral sense, right? Equally, right? So like if it is the case that right, if it happens to a woman, if the victim is a woman or the victim is a child, well, you won't view it as more wrong in one scenario compared to the other. That's kind of like what you just brought up in the prior scenario. So then, like
And
my
I
point
told
in
you that.
terms of then doing that is that Donald Trump was held civilly liable of a woman. So if there's no distinction in a moral sense, well, then I'm asking you the question: would you vote for Donald Trump if he were held civilly liable of a child?
I'm saying we can hold exceptions in the case of, but that's 1% of abortions. How
Wait,
about
hold
the
up,
other
hold up. I want you to
99%?
answer my specific question.
No, I'm not going to,
Why not?
because it's a moot point.
No, then
There's
respond
there's
to it.
no there's no winning outcome for me.
There's no winning. So you agree that you look bad no matter what. So
Well, yeah, but it
you
doesn't
agree that
disprove
I've
anything.
constructed an argument that no matter how you respond, you're fucked. That's called a
But
checkmate, buddy.
it
That's
doesn't
called a
disprove
checkmate.
anything.
Do you know what that's called? It's called a checkmate, bud.
It doesn't
You
disprove
can
anything
see
though.
the checkmate, and instead of acknowledging that your position is wrong, you're like, I'm not going to respond, bro. I'm not going to respond.
How's my position wrong? I told you there could be exceptions in the case of.
Okay, but we're not talking about abortion here. We're saying if Donald Trump was held civilly liable of a child, would you vote for him still?
But it's
No
in relation to
response.
abortion. That's why you brought it up.
Just answer the question. I promise you I'll
Nope.
wrap it back in.
No.
Why not?
Well, it's a good thing he didn't.
Can you answer the question, though?
Nope.
Why not?
Because there's no good
I'm
outcome.
gonna keep farming until you answer the question. I will farm as many trees
yeah, I would.
as is needed. I will go through as many axes as I have to in order to be able to get this loot. I promise you. So answer the question.
Yeah, I would, but I would only do it for the administration.
What? So you would vote for him if you were held civilly liable of a child?
For the administration.
Oh wait, is there something that Donald Trump could do that would get you to not support him?
Like what?
No, I just asked you, is there something Donald Trump could do to get you to not support him?
Give me an example.
No, I'm asking you to give me an example. Hello?
You gave me a ridiculous question. I gave you a ridiculous answer.
That wasn't a ridiculous question. I asked you,
Yeah,
is
it
there
is.
something that Donald Trump could do that would get you to not support him? That's not a ridiculous question.
Yeah, I'm not in a cult.
Then answer the question. Give me an example.
No, the burden of example is on you.
No, I'm asking you for the example, and you're not providing it right now because you're scared, bro.
I'm not scared. You
Provide the
you had to
example
switch
then.
the topic to Trump
Provide the example.
because you can't debate me on abortion.
Pumpkin, just provide the example, and then yes, we will continue. And I did debate you on abortion.
And then you had to switch the topic.
No, I promise you I would wrap it in, but you don't want to answer the question. So we're spending how many more minutes on the conversation because you won't answer the questions?
You create an unwinnable hypotheticals when you're losing. That's what you do.
No, it's called a checkmate in a debate, genius. Like, I don't know why you're mad that like I beat you in the debate and I made it so it's like impossible for you to answer something under your own perspective. Nothing?
I mean, would you ask me, bro? If I would vote for Trump if he filed?
If you were held civilly liable of child.
No.
No, you wouldn't. Okay, so if there's no moral distinction, right, in terms of like women and children specifically in terms of like like them being a victim, right, of a right, then it is the case that you wouldn't provide that as a distinction, the fact that the victim were a child versus the victim being a woman, as a reason to dispute why you would support, or I mean, as a reason to support why you'd support Donald Trump in the scenario in which the victim were a woman, but not if the victim were a child. Because you're saying you would vote for Donald Trump if you were held civilly liable of a woman, but you wouldn't vote for Donald Trump if you were held civilly liable of a child. And again, you already said that that's not a good enough distinction.
And how does this relate to abortion?
You brought up the argument, and I saw when you provided the argument that it was a checkmate against you, so I provided the argument to show you that it was a checkmate. Like you just
I'm
like
still not
when
seeing how it's tied.
when providing your argument for abortion, the commitments that you had in arguing that for abortion then led you to then not supporting Donald Trump based upon that reasoning.
I told you I supported him for my pro-life position.
I understand, but regardless of his pro-life position, you wouldn't vote for him if you were held civilly liable of a child, right?
Yeah, because it gets to a point, bro.
Okay, well, why is it not at that point when the victim is a woman?
Because it's a minor. It's more crimes. It's more.
I thought you just said that that wasn't a relevant distinction.
Well, I'm just gonna try. There's more. It's another crime. It's two crimes instead of one. How about that?
How?
Because not only is it is a crime, and so is a minor. So it's two crimes instead of one. More laws broken.
So it's being a minor, right?
Yeah, and this. Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition to. That's also a crime.
What? Oh, I'm
What do
sorry.
you
Is
mean?
of a woman not?
I'm saying it is, and I'm saying on top of that.
Then
it's
what's
greater
the
than minor.
distinction? I'm confused. It's the same
More
crime.
More crime.
What are you talking about?
Okay, so in the case where it was a child, right? It's
Wait,
a minor.
I'm sorry. Are
and
you
it's
saying
assault.
that the victim being a child makes it more of a criminal act?
No, I'm saying it's more than one crime because it's a child and
That
sexual
doesn't.
assault. So
Wait. Okay. I just want to let you know. Grape is grape. That's one
I understand.
thing. I'm confused what your point is. Like,
It's more crime because it's a minor.
what does that even? What do you mean more crime?
It's more than one felony. Is it not?
I'm not quite sure how many felonies is considered under the law. I'm confused what your point is. I'm sorry. Can you give me a reason that you provide a distinction between, right, the scenarios, in the scenario in which the victim of is a woman versus the victim is a child, and into one scenario you're like, I'm not going to support Donald Trump if the victim is a child, but if the victim's a woman, you're totally okay with supporting the guy.
And millions of other people agree with me.
Yeah, and I'm asking you why. Because like if I sat down and had a conversation with every Trump supporter, I guarantee like 40% of them would concede on this point.
I mean,
Because like I literally went on Jubilee and I asked the entirety of the conservative side, would you support Donald Trump if you were held civilly liable of a woman? Raise your hand if you would. And only a few people did. So most people, when hearing that, wouldn't support Donald Trump. They just need it explained to them. They need to go through the conversation. They need to walk through the steps of this specific dialogue. And if they don't do that, then they can ignore it within their own heads.
All right. Well, that's all I got.
You got nothing else? You're going to run away? Nothing?
I can't. I told you it's an unwinnable outcome.
It's unwinnable. So are you saying a debate against me is unwinnable for a MAGA individual?
When you create hypotheticals like that, yeah.
No, when I just am so good
don't
at
disprove
constructing
anything, though.
hypotheticals. When I'm
All
so
they
good
do
at
is-
constructing hypotheticals, I just can't lose. That's what he just said. He just said, I can't win against Parker because the hypotheticals that he constructs destroy my arguments. That's literally what you just said.
They don't though.
What?
I was talking about. I told you I'd give exceptions.
You said
in
it's
the case where-
unwinnable. What does win mean?
I told you because the only reason you brought this up was because we were talking about abortion, And you brought up the if a child was
Yeah,
raped, right?
because something that you were committed to in terms of arguing abortion then bit you in
But
the
you
ass.
didn't let me, bro. I tried saying multiple times that I'll for the sake of the debate, I'll give an exception in the case of.
Yeah, that means you don't actually hold the position. The fact that you'd say it's okay for literally a woman to not be able to allow to get access to an abortion because she's a is ridiculous. And you say you only are willing to
What are you
concede
talking about?
You said you're only willing to concede on that point for the live. What? Does that mean that you hold the position on a private standpoint?
No, I don't.
Then what the hell does it mean?
What do you? I'm saying I'll give the exception.
Yeah, but you just said for the live.
What?
You said for the purposes of the live, right?
My position is pro-life with exceptions, but I forgot to mention that.
Sure. Can I ask another question then?
Yep.
Again, do you think it's for women to use an IUD in the circumstances in which it leads to the death of the zygote?
Yeah.
You do think it's? You think it should go to prison?
No, the administrator.
No,
The person administering it.
you don't think it should go to prison?
They should.
Okay,
But
you do. You
what
do
I'm saying is
you
you
do.
don't necessarily know that they're doing that.
Okay, so you do think that should be in prison, given that they are under your position. Do you think women who have IUDs that then the zygote specifically, right? Do you think in those circumstances that they should go to prison?
No.
Okay, so you just contradicted yourself. You said go to prison. You consider them, therefore, under your view, they should go to prison, but you don't think that. So it makes me think that you don't actually think that they're.
It's because they don't know that they're doing it.
Oh, they don't know? I'm confused. What do you mean they don't
They
know?
don't know they're committing.
What do you mean they don't know?
They don't know that they're getting the potential for life.
If I drop an IED like in a children's classroom with a 1% chance that it's going to like a fetus, right? In that particular scenario, right? Would I be culpable for it, given that I didn't know it ended up blowing up?
Yeah, you would.
I would. So then what's the distinction in terms of culpability?
Less moral value. However, that doesn't.
Wait, I said a fetus.
Oh, you said a fetus.
Yeah.
So
There's no distinction in moral value, under your view at least. You got anything else?
all right. No. Yeah, I don't have anything else.
No, but like seriously, think about my point though, because I think that does actually like serve as like a reason to not be pro-life there. Because like realistically, it's going to end up reducing your value to you care about past or present and future subjective experience.
So what's a better position to hold as a pro-lifer?
Well, not to be pro-life anymore. It's to hold my position.
I know, but to win a debate, like what's the best conservative you've ever debated?
I haven't heard any good responses to my arguments, like in terms of this. Like people are going to argue from your perspective what's called flow, which is the same thing that you just argued, right? But like in a more constructive, or I guess in a more like specific philosophical sense, like it's under the specific norms in philosophy.
Is Hayden
compared
Rodeo a
to-
good debater?
No. I mean, but he probably has gotten better. I mean, he looks like he tries to do better. Like in the video that he made where he debated us, you know, he actually made a video after, like going over the things that he did wrong. I think that's really good. So although I don't think that he's like some incredible debater currently, he is showing that he wants to learn, you know, and change his views by making a video like that. So I actually give a lot of props for making a video like that, but I don't think that like he provided some really like killer argument or something like that.
The one hypothetical he posed I thought was pretty interesting was the 10 pigs versus the newborn who will die.
No, it doesn't.
age of
It actually doesn't, because we hold a conjunction when it relates to that as well.
I don't think he understood what a conjunct was.
Yeah, it's okay though. I mean, like he'll learn that. Like that's something that's honestly like it takes a second to be able to understand. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna, you know, if someone doesn't understand a conjunct right away, like I'm not gonna, you know, get mad at them. That's why actually when I describe my view, oftentimes I won't even mention the conjunct in most scenarios.
Yeah.
If it makes sense. But like if someone asks about it, I'll clarify the conjunct exists.
All right.
But yeah, you should hold my view, man.
All right. Have a good night, man.
Have a good night.